Hey everybody, welcome back. I just had to show you. This is our mighty harvest of our peas from our garden. This is what we've gotten. It was a handful of peas by the time we de-shelled them, and we have planted new peas back in the garden, so hopefully we'll get some more. Y'all, we rendered some beef fat. We have rendered some tallow for our pantry. Doesn't this look amazing? I also wanted to let you know that I published a chocolate cake recipe. If you're interested in that, you can find that on my channel. And I'm working on another recipe. Can you tell what this is? Keep your eyes out. It's a mayonnaise recipe coming soon. All right, let's get started with today's clue. Hi everyone, I have come to interrupt our normally scheduled program. How are y'all doing? Just before we get started with clue number 14, I wanted to walk you through a discovery that I made yesterday. Okay, so take a deep breath. I have been stressed out since yesterday. Okay, so many of you know that I'm pre-recording clues for the next several weeks. And in doing so, I have pre-cut all of my pieces for all of the clues. 21 clues, I've pre-cut all my pieces. Now, when I give you the PDF instructions and I tell you how many strips to cut, how wide to cut the strips, and how many pieces to cut from those strips, I go through the yardage that I bought for this quilt and I cut those strips so that I can accurately give you the strip count, right? And in doing so, I'm hoping that this is the case. I have messed myself up. In any case, I've cut all my pieces and I've made a huge discovery as far as what EQ8 calculated we needed for this quilt versus what I've actually used to cut out all my pieces for all 21 clues. And before we move on with clue number 14, I wanted to bring this to you because I pre-recorded 14 a few days ago. I discovered this yesterday. So I want to bring you along. We're going to take a look at this PDF that I've attached to clue number 14. When you download the instructions, you're going to get these PDFs along with it, okay? Let's take a look. All right, over here on the left is what I said, what EQ8 told me we needed for this quilt, right? And EQ8, we discovered while I was doing a Zoom with many of you a couple weeks ago, EQ8 has figured cutting all of the pieces for this quilt top in a completely different way than cutting strips like what we have been doing, right? In many cases, we have saved so much fabric in doing so. Let's take a look. There's one number that's quite alarming, okay? Let's start down here with the dark pink fabric. I said an EQ8 calculated 2.5 yards for this quilt top. When I cut out all my pieces, I had actually only used 2.25 yards. So I had a little extra left over, right? For the brown fabric in this quilt, EQ8 calculated 4.5 yards, and I only cut 3.5 yards. Remember, I cut strips for each clue. I did not use leftover fabric when I could have. And that's going to play a vital role here in just a minute, right? But I still, even cutting strips for every single clue, including all those sashing clues, used a yard less than what EQ8 told me we needed. The background fabric, which was really surprising to me, EQ8 calculated 6.5 yards, and I only used 4 yards of that. So I have a whole 2.5 yards extra going into my stash, right? It's the light pink fabric that I am so worried about, and I'm hoping everyone has enough, right? EQ8 figured you would need 2 yards to make all of the pieces for this quilt, and I've actually cut 2.5 yards from my stash for this quilt. That was what alarmed me yesterday. right? And that's why I put together this PDF. I've revised the fabric requirements for this quilt. I ordered 3 yards. When I was done cutting all the strips, I only had 2.5 yards left. Now again, when I could have used leftovers from previous clues, I didn't. And I'm so hoping that you have enough of whatever fabric you're using in place of the light pink fabric. So let me just tell you, we are using the light pink fabric in clues 15, 16, 18, 19, and 21. We have at this point at least 8 weeks worth of clues, and I've built in a break week, okay? So these are the clues that we're going to be using the light pink fabric: 15, 8, 16, 18, 19, and 21. At this point, as of today, if you were to cut strips of fabric for every one of these clues, you would need 1 yard and 12 inches of light pink fabric. So I don't know if that's a good way for you to pull out whatever fabric you're using for the light pink and measure it out and see how much you have left. If you have less than 1 yard and 12 inches, we would need to use whatever fabric scraps you have left over, right, for everything. I don't know if maybe you're going to need an additional half yard of that light pink fabric. Again, it's so hard for me to know that because instead of using leftovers, I cut strips for everything. So it's really hard for me to gauge and to tell you accurately if you will have enough fabric. So the only thing that I can do is to tell you at this point, if you don't use no leftovers at all, you need 1 yard and 12 inches for all the clues we have left, okay? 8 weeks, and we're using the light pink in the very last clue, right? So we have time if you need to source another half yard or to evaluate how much you have left. Do you know what I'm saying? I hate this. I've been so stressed out. I told Harlan, I said, why? You know, it calculated extra for everything. For everything. I have extra fabric left over. What is up with this one particular fabric and I actually used more? Maybe I miscut some, but I don't think so. And I do know that in clue 2, my mistake, I had you cut one strip that was 3.5 inches wide, and we made clue number 2, and that was wrong. But that does not account for half a yard. One 3.5 inch wide strip does not account for half of a yard off. Do you know what I'm saying? If we were only off 3.5 inches, I would be like, that is my huge mistake, which was a huge mistake, and I hate that, and I'm sorry. But 3.5 inches, that miscut does not account for the whole half yard that we are off. So from here moving out, there are ways that we can use up more of the fabric and extend it just a little bit, right? We can extend it a little bit by decreasing the extra amount on our templates, right? I gave you a whole 1/2 inch all the way around to cut your template pieces bigger. We can reduce that size moving forward if you're worried. If you look and you're like, well, I want to cut strips from what I have and I don't have 1 yard and 12 inches. We can reduce the size of our templates for all of these clues, which will give us a little bit of wiggle room, right? But yeah. And I will show you, not as part of clue number 14, because I've already recorded that video, and clue number 14 does not use the light pink fabric, and you're going to see that here in just a minute. We're not cutting any light pink fabric this week. As part of week clue number 15, I'll show you how you can reduce the size of your templates. Therefore, reduce the width of the strips you're cutting. We can get it to stretch out a little bit, but yes, I don't understand that when everything else is less. I don't know, y'all. I'm so confused. And just trying to check to see if there's anything else on that page. So as part of 14, you're going to also have this in your download for instructions this week. This is the revived version of the fabric requirements. If you have not started this quilt yet and you have not purchased fabric, but you want to, down the road, you already know you want to make this quilt. When you, as part of the introduction video, I have updated this to say 3 yards to give yourself extra wiggle room, right? I've increased all the numbers by half a yard in case there's a miscut, right? The downside of doing a quilt for the first time with you in real time, right? I am doing the clues the same week that the videos are coming out. I am supposed to be right there along with you sewing these clues, although I have fallen far behind. But I guess that's the downside of doing a quilt project in real time with you, is that these things play out the further we go along. And I am so glad that in clue number 14, I worked ahead and pre-cut everything, because I'm finding out with many weeks left to go that there's an issue, and we can work around it, hopefully. And if it's impossible to make what you have left stretch, there could be a chance that you can source more, right? Half a yard more is what we need. If you're using the light pink, I already know, I went on to Marshall's website yesterday. They don't have it anymore, but I did find on Etsy, there is a quilt shop selling this fabric on Etsy, and it looks like they have a good amount left, and it was $9 and something a yard. I will put that listing right here up on the screen for you. I know many of you are using this particular fabric, and it's not available at Marshall's dry goods any longer. But this is where you could find it. I'm sure there's other places online that might carry it as well. But I'm going to try my best to show you a way to make it stretch further what you have. And I'm just saying, use every available scrap you have, right? And yeah, I would say that the mistake in clue 2 was the big discrepancy. I can't say that word, but it really doesn't account for all the fabric that I'm off. Do you know what I'm saying? It's a smidgen of it, but it's not half a yard. So I hate that. I have been so stressed out since yesterday, but we're going to move forward. We're going to do clue number 14 today. It doesn't use any light pink fabric, and next week I will show you how to reduce the size of your templates. We're just cutting a little bit off, right? And we will move on from there. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. I'll be in the live chat during this premiere, and you can post your questions over on Creative Crew, and I will try to help the best I can. Again, I'm hoping that this isn't an issue, because I cut strips for everything, right? And if you've been using leftover bits along the way, you might be good, and that's what I'm praying for. Okay? All right, let's go get started with clue number 14. Hi everybody, welcome back to my house. Today we're doing clue number 14 of the mystery quilt Sundae Stars. How are you doing with your quilt? I think more importantly, I should be asking, are you having fun with your quilt? At no point should this quilt project be stressful for you. Whether you are all caught up and you're ready to start sewing Clue 14 today, or if you're struggling way behind like me, at no point should you be stressed out, and every one of these clues should be fun. That's the whole point, right? I hope you're having so much fun. Today we're going to do some paper piecing with this quilt project and clue number 14, but before we get started, let me just show you the progress and where we are, including today's clue. Don't you just love that? I think it is so pretty. At this point, you can pretty much fill in the empty squares or the empty gray area, right, in your mind, and just almost see this quilt top completed, right? Can you see it? Isn't that so pretty? Let me pull up what we're exactly sewing as part of clue number 14. So today, we are doing 24 pesky little sashing units, right? And then we are doing another unit that completes this middle part of a star block here. So we're going to be sewing 12 of these units, and then we're going to pull in this section right here that we've already done together from clue 4 and clue 6, right? This unit here, and we're going to add clue 14 to this unit here as part of clue number 14, and this middle section will be completed, right? The sashing parts, you're doing 24 of those, and I've decided, because I'm so far behind, that I'm going to wait to start assembling all of my sashing units until all of this gray area sashing units are completed, and then I will piece it together once we've done all of the clues to complete that sashing unit. Now y'all, we've already completed 24 sashing units, and so if you wanted to piece these three together and get a head start, and you are not behind and you're looking for something to do, you could go ahead and do that if you wanted to. But as part of this quilt project, there will come a time where I'm going to say, gather all of these clues that make up this sashing unit, and we're going to sew it together. So if you want to hold off on that, you can, but you know how to sew them together, right? You could if you wanted to. I'm waiting because I have so many other clues I'm so far behind on. So these are the parts that we are sewing today. Let's come on down to the pressing board. So where's all my papers? Okay, the instructions. Let's pull this over first, right? And it's going to basically tell you exactly what I just went over. This week we're piecing 12 bigger units. They look like that part right there, right? That's what we're piecing together this week. And this week we're also going to pull over that section right there, and it's clues 4 and 6. You'll see that on the back if you've left the papers on, and we're going to join clue 14 to that, right? These are all of your fabrics, your strips, how wide the strips are, and how many pieces to cut, right? And then your templates on the back side. Now you're going to notice that 2 of the templates have red letters. Those are your sashing templates, okay? And then the ones with the black letters go to the template or the foundation, I'm sorry, that we're piecing together that looks like this right here. Okay, so that is your instruction PDF and templates. And then your foundations, you're going to print 2 copies of this week. That's going to give you a total of 12 of these units and 24 sashing units. We have done this particular unit so many times. So I'm not going to sew that with you this week. We've already done that, right? But it's been a hot minute since we did this unit we did it during clue number 4, right? It's the same exact unit that we did as clue number 4, but we're on 14, so that was 10 weeks ago. So we're going to go ahead and sew or paper piece this unit this week. Plus, if you look at clue number 4, I had you start over here and work your way that way, but I kind of prefer starting in the middle and working my way out. So I did change that. You could start here and work your way over just like we did in clue number 4, or you can start in the middle like I'm going to do this week. It doesn't matter, right? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to sew one of these units together, and then I'm going to join it to this section here as part of today's video, and I think that that would be helpful. And yes, at the end of clue number 14, we will have 12 of these blocks completed, right? And 24 more sashing units to add to our stash. So I've already cut one of these off. We are right here. Let me change the camera so that you have the sewing machine and my cutting board, and I won't have to go back and forth so much. Okay, here we go. We have this particular unit that we're going to work on together. I'm going to lay that right side facing down. I have my fabrics here. For this unit, we're working with the brown, dark pink, and the background fabrics, and I'm going to be starting right here in this middle section. Just adding some glue right in there, and that first fabric goes right side facing up. Now from here, both sides are equally the same. So even though I've numbered them, it doesn't matter if you do this side or you do this side, right? It doesn't matter, but I'll go in order. So I'm over here. That long part of the triangle is facing the middle, just like that. It's hard to see because it's such light fabric, right? We're going to flip that right over. And this will be our first seam for today. Okay, we're coming back over here. At this point, I really believe that I could just give you the rest of the clues and you could do this quilt all on your own. This is our 14th week in this quilt, and I feel like there's nothing I'm going to give you that you would not be able to do all on your own. I really feel like the weekly videos at this point are just a reason for us to come together and hang out for the few minutes on YouTube while the video premieres, right? In the beginning, I could see where it would be super helpful to have each clue step by step, but at this point, you're a pro. All right, so that was 2. Now we're going to come over here to piece number 3. The long part of the triangle, and we're flipping that right on over. Let's flip that paper over. I will tell you what I really like about this quilt project, right? And doing the clues the way we've been doing them is I get project ADD. I think that's a real thing. I get bored with projects real fast. And so the fact, other than the sashing units, having to do so many of those, and all of them are the same or kind of the same, other than those, we're constantly working on different parts of the quilt. So it keeps my interest because each week I'm doing something slightly different. Do you know what I'm saying? It's been able to keep me interested and excited about the quilt. So I really like that. I struggle when I have to do lots and lots and lots of the same thing over and over and over again, back to back. I'm real excited in the beginning, and a few hours in, I lose all interest. So I do like the way we've broken up the clues. All right, so now we're going to add our 2 end squares, right? So 4 is over here, and that just gets flipped right on over. And you can check, you can just see that dark brown fabric and the other fabric sticking beyond it, right? So we're good there. I'm going to go ahead and sew that. We're trimming that fabric. So just taking a poll, a week 14 poll, spur of the moment week 14 poll, okay? What has been your most favorite clue so far? Trying to think which one's my favorite. I really do like all the clues that are leading up to this. This is fun for me, these smaller little units like this. All right, and number 5 is on the other side. So we're going to add that there, flip it on over, and I'm just going to double check that I have it lined up. See that? This is the background fabric that goes way over the line. That's my brown fabric. I have plenty of space there. Even though it looks like this on that side. All right, let's get rid of this extra bits of fabric. So there she is in all of her wonkiness. But she's not going to look like that for long. We're going to come right over here and we're going to square this up nice and pretty. And while I do that, as part of the poll, what has been your least favorite clue so far? I think because I do have the what I say a crafter's ADD, I have a short attention span for doing repeated things over and over. Because of that, the sashing units I have struggled with this quilt. But like I've mentioned several times, it's gonna be so worth it. It really is. but I struggle with the sashing units. I really do. Okay, so she's not wonky anymore. Now she's so perfect, right? So perfect. Now let's go back over here because, wow, that's really bright. I'll turn that off. And that's not even as bright as it would go either. This unit should measure 6.5 inches from the left side to the right side, right? 6.5 inches. It's going to join, let me just tidy up a little bit. It's going to join this block right here. Tidy up, Lisa. Make sure that your block is orientated correctly, unless you want to pick a seam. Like I almost laid it out just like this, and that would be so easy to do, right? But she goes like that, and it forms a star, and this star will be the center of another star, which makes up the complete block, right? When we're lining up these pieces, just like we did down here, the most important part, if you're particular and you like all your seams to match, the thing that you'll want to pay attention to the most is where these seams come together, right? So this seam and that seam, when you flip it over, see that how it's lined up? See that how it's lined up? We want to keep those seams lined up right there. So it might be easier for you to use some pins. It might be easier for you to use binding clips. It might be even easier for you to glue baste this unit. I think I'm going to wing it and just hold it in place with those seams lined up, right? And just like we did down here, I'm sewing right on that line right there. Now, if you're doing it in a different way where you're removing the paper or you're not sewing through the paper as part of your clues, you'll want to set your seam allowance for the 1/4 inch seam allowance, okay? But you'll also want to do a measurement of your block once you're done, because it might be, depending on the thread you're using and the fabric you're using, it might be that you need to use a little bit less than a 1/4 inch, like a scant 1/4 inch, right? So there we go. I'm going to bring this right on over to the sewing machine. Okay, here we go. Sorry, I keep putting my fingers in the way. All right, we're going to take this unit right on over here. And I'm just going to scoot my pressing board right on over so that we can press this with you. Look, I have clues just all piled up on the other side of my pressing board. Let me get this iron warmed up because we're going to press this seam. But I'm going to lower the heat on my iron. I usually like it like full blast, hot as it will go. But I'm going to put it down to the wool setting, right? I have found that I was using too high of a heat and shrinking my paper up on all of my first sets of sashings. So that's a bummer, right? I don't want to do that with this. We're going to come right over here. I'm going to open this seam up, and I like to press it one way and press it the other way. Really start working that. And I'm going to take my pokey tool. I showed making this in last week's video. I wish I could take the credit for thinking of this idea, but y'all, this is something I saw like a couple years ago on somebody else's YouTube channel, and there's actually several videos showing you how to do it now. But yeah, I just thought if you wanted a pokey tool and you couldn't find one like mine, it would be helpful to know how to make one. I like to go ahead and get this paper out of this seam allowance before I press it. It's easier to do now than after you press it. All right, there's all my little paper tidbits. And I'm going to press this seam open. You could press this seam over to the side if you wanted to. If you press the seam over to the side and you go and you measure the block afterwards, check to make sure that your block is the accurate size. Sometimes pressing a seam over to the side will reduce the size of your block by a little smidgen. So if you are pressing your seams to the side and it's not exactly what I'm going to tell you here in just a minute, maybe pull it over and open that seam and repress it. I'm used to a really hot iron. This is not as hot as what I'm used to, but maybe it won't shrink the paper. All right, so the big reveal. Here is my finished block. Isn't that wonderful? That is so much fun. I absolutely love that. Now, if our piecing is correct, it should be 6.5 inches. Or 6 1/4. Oh, it is 6.5. I was reading my ruler wrong. I was starting to panic. Okay, 6.5 this way, and 6.5 that way. I don't know why I said 6 1/4. I was reading that incorrectly, and for an instant I started to panic. Your quilt block should be 6.5 by 6.5. Okay. Isn't it so pretty? So at the end of this week, you're going to have 12 units. The back is going to look like this, right? And that's your front. And you're going to put all of these into your bin and wait down the road. We still have some other pieces that make up the outside of this block. And like I said in the beginning, if you want to get a head start and start sewing those sashing units together, you see in the progress photo in the instructions, and you saw it on the video, those pieces are lined up right next to each other, and we're working our way up that sashing. So those 3 pieces could be sewn together if you want to do that. Just know down the road I'm going to be doing that, and if you've already done it, you'll have some free time. Right? You could do something else, because isn't it so true that none of us only have one project going on at one time, right? We have multiple things going on, so you'll have some free time if you decide to do that now. There's no way I can fit that in right now. Absolutely no way. All right, everybody. I think this is so pretty, don't you? I love it. And yeah, so that's clue number 14. If you have any questions, feel free to leave comments down below. But I'll tell you, the real fast place to get help is over on the Creative Crew. If you haven't joined that, it's a Facebook page. The link for it is down in the description box, along with all the ways to get in touch with me. Y'all, this video is the Friday before I go on my new exciting teeth adventure. Wish me luck. It's only in a couple days. So I'm nervous, anxious, and excited. Equally, all parts. All at the same time. Do you know the thing that I'm most scared of at first? Like, the most scared of? I mean, I'm scared of getting the teeth pulled and the pain after and recovering. I'm scared of that. I'm mostly scared that I'm not going to be able to eat a lot of different things for a little while. That's horrible, isn't it? But I do hope that maybe I'll lose like 5 or 10 pounds. Wouldn't that be lovely? That would be awesome. Okay, it's really hard to do when I'm putting out recipes for chocolate cake. I'm working on that recipe for you. And bread. All things in moderation though, Lisa, right? Yes. All right, I love you so much. Thanks for hanging out with me and my silliness. And there will be a video next week. I'm pre-recording it, so we're not going to miss a beat. And I'll see you next Friday. I'll probably even be in the live chat premiere. I think I'll be okay for that next week. All right, everybody. Have a fantastic week. Bye.